The Ranier family has been prominent in stock car racing for over 50 years. 3 generations of the Ranier family have competed and won at the highest level.
They're coming to the finish line. At the line, it is Joey Armour.
The first foray from the Kentucky family came in the post-World War II era, led by a man known as HB.
His name was H.B. Ranier. He was also Harry Ranier, but he went by H.B. Ranier. He got involved back in the early 50s. He was actually a Lincoln Mercury dealer, along with doing other things in construction and pipelining and things like that. But he got involved in the early 50s and with a pretty good young driver by the name of Johnny Patterson at the time, and he was from the Huntington, West Virginia area. And they were pretty successful on the short tracks, and then they made a couple of starts in the Southern 500. In 1952, they finished second to Fonnie Flock, and then in 1954 they finished fourth. And he ran a few races in the Cup level. It was a Grand National level at that time, and his main emphasis was in ARCA in the 60s. He had 2 factory-backed Dodge ARCA teams in the 60s with Bobby Watson and Andy Hampton, and they were very successful. They won nearly 30 races in ARCA at that time, and ARCA was at a pretty good level at that time. With you had the ARCA series, the USAC Stock Car Series, and then obviously the NASCAR Grand National Series at that time, which is now Cup.
With NASCAR's emerging dominance over ARCA and USAC for stock car racing supremacy clearly established, HB's son, Harry Ranier, made the move in the late 70s to NASCAR in a big way.
We started in '79 with Baker, and we had a really good year that year. Started out and won the pole for Daytona, and won the inaugural Busch Clash, which is now the Bud Shootout. And we won the qualifying race, and then we had ignition problems in the race. And it's funny because that race ended up being an historic race, because that was a race that Donnie Allison and Cale Yarborough had the big spin and the fight and the whole thing on national television. So '79 was a good year. We won Michigan. I think we won Martinsville that year, and then in '80 we started out the year really strong and won the Daytona 500 1980 with Buddy Baker, and I think we won Talladega, the first Talladega race in 1980. So, and then in '81 Bobby drove for us, Bobby Allison, and we had a good year that year. Finished second in points, won 5 races, won the World 600 at Charlotte, and Talladega races. Just had a good year. Just missed the championship there to Darrell, and they had a really great rivalry that year in '81, because Darrell had just went over to Junior Johnson's, and really it was a great year that year, just a good year. And Bobby ended up leaving in '81, and we ended up kind of had a transition year in '82. We had Vinnie Parsons for the first half of the year, and then Buddy Baker for the second half of the year. Didn't really fare all that well in '82, and then in '83 through '86 we had Cale Yarborough, and that really worked out good. Brought Hardee's on board, major sponsor at that time, and won back-to-back 500s in '83 and '84, and had a lot of success with Cale, a lot of fun, great time right there. And then in '87 we hired Davey Allison, and that worked out really well. Things went great, and won Rookie of the Year in a couple races his first year, and then won a couple races actually in '88, and then Dad sold the team to Robert Yates at that time.
The trophies and wins are impressive, but the Ranier racing legacy is about much more than checkered flags. Harry Ranier brought class and integrity to victory lane.
Hands-on guy, treated his people fantastic. Probably one of the first guys to come into the sport and really pay people what they were worth. You know, he really kind of escalated the salaries in the sport. You know, some people didn't like that, but he took care of his people, and he made sure they had what they needed to perform, and they did.
Well, to start with, you know, he was my boss, but he become my best friend at the same time, and I've never missed no one like I've missed him. But to work with him, you know, like I said earlier, it was certainly an honor. And I remember when we won Daytona in 1980, and he looked over at me in victory lane. He said, you know, I wish my dad was here to enjoy this with us, because, you know, he evidently thought a lot of his father. He was in racing for years, but Harry come along, and he knew how to put the team together, and happy with everything you need, and he never held you back. He always gave you everything you need to work with. So, you know, I just can't say enough good about the man.
If you talk to anybody that ever worked for him, he was a hands-on guy. I remember every day going to school, leaving the house at 7 o'clock, and he'd be on the phone with Waddell Wilson every day at 7 o'clock talking about the events of the day or the week, and just trying to get a game plan to improve the team and to move forward.
Every morning it seemed like we'd always talk on the phone, and he was always giving me pointers, and I'd get down on myself at times whenever we didn't do well. And he'd say, hey, man, you got to pick it up. You know, if women can do this, everybody can do this. So, you know, you got to get with it. And, you know, he always cheered me on when we'd have an engine failure or something like that. He was the best cheerleader I had.
The Ranier team had much more success than failure. After winning 23 races, 3 Daytona 500s, and 39 pole positions with legends like Buddy Baker, Cale Yarborough, Bobby Allison, and Davey Allison, Harry Ranier attempted a comeback with a Midwestern hot shoe named Tony Stewart.
He was fun. I mean, he was always that, you know, father/grandfather figure to you, but you could just tell he was a very, very wise man. I mean, his experience in racing and in horse racing and all that, you could tell that he had a lot of knowledge about what was going on. And the time that I came around into the organization was when they were trying to make their comeback. So it was a neat time for me here. I was a young kid, and not only Harry, but his son Lorin actually came to Eldora Speedway one night to watch me and kind of scout me. And I think he was probably one of the few guys at the time that was actually looking far enough ahead to actually scout drivers. And it was just neat. It was when I got to meet Harry the first time, I was just taken off guard by him. I mean, he was such a neat guy, and to know that he had won Daytona 500s with Cale Yarborough and with Buddy Baker in the car, it was just neat to meet him and have that opportunity to drive for him. I never saw him turn a wrench on a race car, but you saw him in the shop a lot. I mean, a lot of car owners and people that run race teams, you don't see him down on that floor very often with the guys that are working on those cars all day, every day. And Harry was a guy that normally when he went out there, it actually slowed production down a little bit because he was always having fun with these guys, and he knew everything about everybody. He knew the spouses and the girlfriends, and was always asking about how everybody was doing, and that's something that really impressed me about him right off the bat.
Lorin Ranier moves forward, carrying the values established by his grandfather, HB, over 50 years ago. A proud racing legacy.
These guys were great competitors. They were fast. They wanted to win, and they treated their people well. You know, and you know, just quality competitors. You know, one thing about it is anything that my dad had anything to do with was on the up and up. There was never any illegal stuff or anything like that. You know, they sat on the pole 6 years in a row at Daytona, you know, and those cars were perfectly legal. There was, you know, nothing that was out of ordinary. It was within the rules. And just, you know, that we're great competitors. We raced hard, and regardless, you know, if you look at his record, the cars changed, the drivers changed, the crew chief changed, but yet the results were the same.